And I'm going to close with one more framework. And this is one that comes from me. And so I was looking at this problem for years. And then back in 2014, I was at the business school where I was teaching, and I was standing next to the founder. And he was talking about this other idea that he had been thinking about for decades. And I had this aha moment that we're thinking about this wrong, that everybody's thinking about this wrong. The basic issue is that one solar panel, right? If we're just thinking about trying to compare impacts, one solar panel is nice, and 1,000 solar panels is better, but it's not 1,000 times better. It's a little bit better because even 1,000 solar panels doesn't solve the problem of climate change, doesn't solve the problem of access to energy. You need a lot more solar panels to solve that problem. If we can convert an entire country to renewable energy, that's a much, much, much bigger change than 10,000 or 100,000 solar panels or 100,000 solar installations. 100% renewable energy for the entire country. I believe there's 2 countries on the planet that do that at the moment, right? Costa Rica and Iceland. But that is still tiny compared to having an entire planet that's running on renewable energy. So the aha moment is that there's orders of magnitude difference in the impacts that are possible. Not that are happening, but that are possible. And orders of magnitude, I have a degree in math, so I think in big numbers. Orders of magnitude, that's just multiplied by 10. Right? An order of magnitude is just 10 times bigger. So if one thing is 10, one order of magnitude bigger is 100, 2 orders of magnitude bigger is 1,000, and onward. And this creates what we call a logarithmic scale, right? You might be familiar with exponential growth now because of the pandemic. This is the same thing. And so just for example, just so you can get your head around how fast an exponential scale or a logarithmic scale grows. Well, this isn't a 10x because that wouldn't fit on the screen. This is a 5x scale here where that's 1 unit. That little tiny square right there is 1 unit. And this square, the second square here, is 5 times bigger. And this square is 5 times bigger, and this square is 5 times bigger. So if that's 1, this would be 1 order of magnitude, 2, 3 orders of magnitude. If we got to the 5th order of magnitude on the scale, it doesn't fit on my screen, right? It would be bigger than my screen. And the 7th level of magnitude is bigger than whatever city you're sitting in. And the 10th level gets you to the size of the planet. And this isn't the order of magnitude that we're used to. This is only to 5x. It's not half of 10x. It's much, much smaller than 10x. Right? Each level grows half as fast as it would if it were 10x. So orders of magnitude, logarithmic scale, they grow really fast, right? 10 levels get you to something that in a scale of 10x per level, the 10th level is a square that can fit the Earth and the moon. And the 15th can fit the solar system. Like it grows that fast, maybe in the 12th. So I wrote a book on this. I summed up my thoughts on this into a book. I'll cover a little bit in a second here. It's called the Pinchot Impact Index because I was teaching at the school was called Pinchot University at that point. The founder's name was Gifford Pinchot III. So I said, well, what if we took all the potential impacts of the world and we put them on a scale of 0 to 7? And every level in this index, every level that we could talk about, was 1,000 times bigger than the one before. So if one solar panel is 1 unit, then the next one up is 1,000 times bigger, and the next one up is 1,000 times bigger than that. By the time we get to the 7th unit, we're talking about a really, really big number. So 3 orders of magnitude per step. So here's what it looks like. Here's the nomenclature for it. Is we call it P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. And so a P1, anything you do that's good for anything, any small goodness, a few solar panels, a few hectares of trees saved, a few vaccines done, some homelessness, you donated $1, right? Everything like that is just a P1. So the basic idea here is that we should stop arguing about whether 1,000 vaccines is better than 100 solar panels. They're both good. They're both good. Let's not sit here and argue about which one's better. That is not helping make more of these. What makes more of these is to invest in more things to do more P1s. P1s are good. Let's just do more good. P2 then, 1,000 times bigger than that, has to be systemic. So if you're investing in a company and it's doing, I'll just stick with solar panels, and it's putting solar panels on roof, that's nice. That's a P1. But if you find a company that changes the game, that makes it so that it's much easier for everybody to put solar on the roof. So like Solar City, where they said, don't buy the solar panel. We'll buy the solar panels. We'll just charge you for the electricity. That's the systemic change, right? The idea of we'll stick with Elon Musk and Tesla, right? They put in 200 or 300 charging stations around the country, or 1,000 charging stations around the country before they were even needed. That was systemic because that then led to electrification of cars, or leading to that. You make a systemic change, you get to be P2 on this level, 1,000 times bigger than P1. This gets really big really fast. P3, we solve hunger. We solve SDG2, hunger. Completely solved. Nobody's hungry. Everybody eats 3 meals a day. Every major disease is gone. Every major disease can be not gone. We still get sick, but there's a cure. You go to the store and you have a disease. Your doctor tells you what it is. You go to the store, you pick up a salve or a pill or something, and you're cured. Every disease, right? That's a P3. The whole planet is renewable energy. I have political things. It goes deeper in the book on these big chunky topics. That's just 3 on this list. So as you can see, pretty much everything you're going to invest in is going to be less than a 3. But it keeps going because I said it goes to 7. So if you think about solving hunger is hard, solving poverty is harder, much harder, right? Because maybe we have a system where we can distribute the food, but not the money. And so if we can solve SDG 1, poverty, that would be a P4. And then some other things on here, right? Every child gets an education. Everything that can be recycled is recycled. We start down the path of a fully sustainable planet, and it's a nicer place to live. And then we get to P5, which is peace on Earth. So all wars end, all crime ends. Martin Luther King's dream. Go watch his dream speech if you haven't seen it in a while. Everything is great. It is a fully sustainable planet, fully sustainable society. There's no poverty. There's no hunger. Everybody's pretty much happy at P5, but it keeps going. There's 2 more levels, and I do this on purpose. P6, I call it a good day on Star Trek. Basically, there's replicators. You go to the store, you go to your wall, whatever. You need something, you press a button, you have it. There's no more money at P6 because you have whatever you need. There's no more diseases at all. Nobody even gets sick. Everybody is happy all the time. And then, of course, what could P7 be? P7 is everyone's enlightened. Right? So everybody's living like Dalai Lama. It's an amazing place to be. There is no P8. There's no reason for anyone to die anymore. Maybe it's immortality at this point because just everything is awesome. And I'll just throw in a real quick plug. There is the Dalai Lama and me in the same room. And that's the Dalai Lama slapping my son right there. He's a lovely guy. If everyone could live like him, if everyone could laugh like him, this would be an amazing planet. That would be great. That gets us up to P7. All right, that's my dream. Anyway, so how do you measure what an impact is? It becomes pretty easy because these levels are so big that almost everything you see is a P1. It's almost certainly a P1 unless it's an amazing systemic change, and then it could be a P2. And I've seen 1 P3 in all my career. I've seen 1 P3. How do you add them together? The book, you can go on, I'll show you a website in a second that gives you the math. You add them together. There's a way to add logarithms together. It's not what you think. Excel can do it for you, but you can add the numbers together. So if you have some P's, and I'm showing fractions here because you can get fractions in the system, you can add them together. You get another number out the other end. You can actually get the number. You can get the number that everyone was dreaming about of how do you measure, how do you add chickens and solar panels? Well, we can do it with this system. It also goes negative. So I'm not going to go through what the levels are, but -7 is the whole universe is destroyed. So it's kind of symmetric. That's one reason why I had to go up to 7 on the positive side. And so you can use this to compute net impact as well. A book tells you how to do that. And then the other aha, as I'm writing out this book, I read a lot of books. What I find is is the discipline of writing a book helps you flesh out the rest of the idea. And that's when I realized that the flaw of some of these other systems is that they mix together the potential impact of the company and the intended impact of the company and what they've actually done. So if we go back to those gears rating and the certified B corporations, a lot of what they're asking is what you think you're going to do. What is your intention? As opposed to what have you actually done? Gears rating is all about what you've actually done. They just don't have a way to add things together. And then potential is a useful add-on on here. If you had a systemic solution that could scale up to the whole globe, well, then your potential might be a P3, right? You could end hunger with the solution. Now, you may not have the resources to do that, right? If you're looking at a company to invest in, it may only have the resources to tackle hunger in Africa, which is still a huge space, but that's not the whole globe. And so it's one level lower. That's just a P2, right? That's a systemic solution, but not a global solution. And so that would be a P2. And then if you've actually only just, this company you're looking at just launched and it's actually solved hunger in one village, well, then it's solved, a tiny fraction of what it needs to do. And in the book, we talk about the fact you only get to choose when you measure the achieved impact. You can't be 3% done or 15% done or even 75% done. You have to pick one of these numbers, one of these levels. And so in the end, we get 3 numbers. And so here's a real chart from, I don't know, a year or 2 ago. Here's a real chart showing the Pinchot Impact Index for potential, intended, and achieved of my 100 fledglings. So you can see there's one in there that has a potential giant sustainable change in the world. Their potential is a P3, but their intended impact is just big enough to be a P2, just systemic. And then nobody's achieved that much. We haven't even achieved a P1 yet, a full P1. In real life, we've achieved some good and not an enormous amount of good yet. But we track this number. And what's interesting about this methodology is it's trackable. You can see a trend over time. You can see numbers that go up. And then what I also learned about this methodology is that once you have a number, it just doesn't feel as good as saying, oh, I brought 100 people out of poverty. It doesn't feel as good as lives touched. And it doesn't feel as good as telling the story of the 3,000 farmers who now have a market to bring their product and are now sending their kids to school. The bottom line of all of these measurements is that what really counts for impact investors and what really gets them going and makes them interested in doing more impact investing are the stories, not the numbers. The reason why we don't hear double bottom line and triple bottom line anymore is that we don't want a bottom line. We want stories. We want to hear about specific people and how we've changed their lives, how we've improved their lives with our money. That's really what it comes down to. So you can go buy the book, you can get the methodology, you can have the number, but it's not going to please you in the end. But you can buy the book anyway. Anyway, that's the URL. There's a 10 or 15 minute description if you want to go deeper on how that one works. And so in summary, there are a whole bunch of frameworks out there. There is no one standard because impact is complicated. I said take that away from the opening part. There are a whole bunch of standards, and none of them work the way we want them to. Ultimately, what people want are stories.